Well, Greg, how did the Stormans family get into the grocery business, the pharmacy business?
Good question. Well, my grandpa Ralph started into the grocery business in 1944, and with his first store, Ralph's Food Center, which is downtown Olympia by Capitol Lake. And since then, we've expanded and grown over the past, 70 years, and continued. My dad took over the business as an only child. My brother and sister and I, as a third generation, joined him. The fourth generation, we're not sure what their role will be, but they have some interest there. And so Ralph's Thriftway is named after my grandpa.
Now, in your pharmacy, you had never sold Plan B or Ella or any of those morning after drugs, and yet sort of a crisis came along that forced you to confront that issue. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. Our principle is simple. Our pharmacies are there to heal people, not to hurt people. When we received a call from a customer in 2006, my brother did, Kevin, they asked did we stock this drug? He called the customer back and explained that's not a drug that we sell, and we thought that was it. Shortly after that, we received numerous calls from customers, and we realized something was going on. We later found out that the former governor of the state of Washington and Planned Parenthood were sending test shoppers in to check to see whether we were actually selling the drug. At that point, we got together as a family and had a conversation and said, we need to reaffirm our commitment to our faith and our beliefs that life is sacred and that we're not going to sell that drug, and confirmed our beliefs. And even though the governor and Planned Parenthood and other forces out there that are pro-abortion were able to implement a law through the Board of Pharmacy that says that you are required to sell it to have a license, we continued to refuse. At that point, we were forced with filing a lawsuit against the state saying that their law was unconstitutional.
What biblical or ethical, moral principle did you really think about, or did you take into consideration when you faced this requirement, really, from the state that you had to sell these drugs?
Well, there's a couple of things. We believe that if we engaged in a process of selling a drug to anyone, whether it's euthanasia, abortion, or anything that would harm a person intentionally, that we were part of that, and we wouldn't do that. Secondly, our faith informs us that when we talk about loving God and loving others, we can't reconcile the issue of taking a human life and consider that loving our neighbor.
What parties did you believe would be harmed if you refused to sell the drugs?
The harm that we believe was inflicted on us, and it's all God appointed because this is all in His hands, was our employees suffered through this for 10 years. There was layoffs, there was reductions in pay. We lost, we estimate $2 to $3 million, and honestly, there's no reason today we should still be in business. The Lord had a plan. He was in charge of it, and through His providence, He kept us not only solvent, but He now, as time has gone on, has continued to show us that our business can prosper even under the circumstances we were under for 10 years.
As these court battles drug on, what kind of encouragement did you receive from other Christians? And if so, what did that encouragement look like?
Well, certainly through the faith communities, we received a lot of encouragement through our church and other people's churches. June 24th, our attorney called me and said, Franklin Graham is going to be in Olympia for his Decision American tour, and he wants to meet you. And I said, sure. Didn't know what that meant, but I certainly agreed. On the 28th, June 28th, a few days later, we got word that the Supreme Court did not take our case. And that was probably the toughest day in my life, just because that means we lost. The next day, June 29th, Franklin showed up. We met. He took us across the street above a restaurant and spent 20 minutes one-on-one talking with our family and praying for us and encouraging us. And you can't You can't explain in any other words other than how God works through faith that the day you would receive, after 10 years, news that was so difficult that the religious icon of your Christian faith, like I said, in the United States or even in the world, would show up and say, hey, be encouraged, stay in the fight, keep going. I walked out of that meeting feeling like if this went on another 10 years, I was ready.
You're still not selling these drugs, and yet Ralph's is still in business. Can you tell us how you saw the Lord's hand working in your behalf?
Yes. The Ninth Circuit Court ruled against us. The Supreme Court didn't take our case. We lost. And yet what people don't really understand is we actually won. Today we do not sell the drug. We haven't sold it. Even there's a law on the books that says we have to. The irony is that through the efforts of Washington State, our former governor, Planned Parenthood, and those in the industry that support abortion, they have deregulated the drug to the point that the whole one of the central issues that we are sued over is availability and accessibility. And they have made it so available and so accessible, they can't use the very argument that they used against us to take us to court. So do we sell the drug today? No. Did we lose the case technically? Yes. But all we went to court to do was say, we don't want to sell the drug. So now more than 10 years later, with a law in the books that says we have to, we don't.